We might as well get started. So my name's Kira. I'm a Senior Policy Officer with the Leadership and Professional Partnerships Unit, Department of Education. Sorry, I've got a transcript coming up. We're going to go over the Toy Library Grants Program. We've got a few other people from the department here. We've got Catherine Lees, who's the manager of my unit, and I'm throwing any of the hard questions in Catherine's direction. We've also got Erin from Toy Libraries Australia, and she's a Victorian Development Officer working on the Victorian toy libraries. Great. So before we get started, I'll start with acknowledging the traditional owners on the lands on which we meet, which for me, that's the Wadawurrung of the Kulin Nation in Geelong. I also want to extend that respect to elders past, present and emerging, as well as First Nations people joining us here today. We're going to go through the Toy Library Grants Program. It's, just see if I can flick over. Nope. All right, so a bit of an overview of the program. It's a really new initiative of the Victorian government where we're looking at investing 1.9 million over 4 years to establish 8 new toy libraries and support existing toy libraries with grants of up to 10,000. We've been working with Toy Libraries Australia on developing this program and getting an idea of the needs that toy libraries have, so we can develop a program and funding amounts that's efficient and effective for toy libraries. So it's a 4-year grant program and we've got 2 funding streams. The first one, I'll give a little bit of an overview before going on to what this presentation is primarily about. The first stream is $40,000 to establish new toy libraries in areas that need it most. So in this one, there's 2 grants per round, a total of 8 new toy libraries over the 4-year period, as well as up to 10,000 to existing toy libraries to replenish toys, improve memberships and enhance accessibility. So primarily we're going to go through the existing toy libraries grants, but I wanted to give you a bit of an overview of the new toy library grants as well, because some toy libraries might be interested in establishing another branch. So with this grant stream, there's 40,000 to establish a new toy library in an area that needs it the most. We'll have about 2 grants this year. And we're looking at funding not-for-profit organisations in Victoria, and that will include community service organisations, local government councils, charities and Aboriginal community-controlled organisations. So that will include some toy libraries as well if you are interested in establishing a new toy library grant. This stream is slightly more competitive than the other stream. So this stream is, there's 2 grants on offer. So we're looking at more robust assessment criteria, project management plan, including deliverables, timelines, that sort of thing, as well as a bit of an idea on locations that you'd like to establish the toy library. We want to look at financial viability and sustainability of the toy library long term, as well as community demand and impact. If this round is oversubscribed, we'll look at prioritisation criteria to make sure that we're, establishing toy libraries in areas that need it the most. And we think that is high growth areas, which we've defined, socioeconomic areas of disadvantage, as well as regional and rural areas, or any other location that does not have adequate access to a toy library. All right, so this grant stream is what we're going to talk about mainly today, and Erin will sort of follow up with a few specific examples about how the grant could be used for a toy library. So we have 3 funding amounts, so up to 10,000 for toy libraries located in high priority regional and growth areas. 6,000 for all other toy libraries, as well as 3,000 for toy or toy libraries. So the majority of toy libraries would probably fit around 6,000 funding. And toy libraries that would be eligible, they would be not-for-profit, operating in Victoria, as well as covered by an adequate level of insurance. So any of the toy libraries that are a member of Toy Libraries Australia would be likely covered by this level of insurance. But if you are not a member of Toy Libraries Australia, that's the level of insurance that we're sort of looking at. So the grants program, the kind of things that would be funded or would be in scope of this grants program would be more than just toys and books. So you could be using the funding amount on new educational toys, books, equipment and resources. We wanted to keep it really broad, so TLA have given us a bit of an idea of the kind of needs that toy libraries have. And that included equipment for storage, cleaning or maintenance of the toys or the toy library, equipment for managing toys or member administration, and any other one-off costs to improve member experience, member accessibility, and increase membership size. So the kind of things that we wouldn't cover with this grant would be ongoing operational costs, including staffing, rent, insurance, that sort of thing. So these are our assessment criteria. It's going to be a really straightforward process. We've got 3 questions, and essentially we're looking at, have you met the criteria or not met it? So there's no sort of scoring involved. It's just like, yes, met, or no, have not met. So the first one is, how will you use the grant funding? And we've got those categories in the previous page, and aren't really asking you to list exactly how you're going to spend the funding. It's just mainly tick what area that you're going to use that funding in. So if you're going to use it for toys, you could just tick that. But if you're going to use a bit of both, you could be ticking all the boxes. So you wouldn't be needing to list everything that you're going to spend it on. The second question is, how will the grant improve member experience, accessibility, or increase memberships? Just give us a bit of an idea of, 100, 150 words of, how you will use that grant to improve the experience for members. And then the last question is, how will the grant positively impact the local community? Yes, same thing. Have you met or not met that criteria? Just to give us an idea of what that might look like for you. If the grant round is oversubscribed in the first round, we're looking at prioritising areas such as high growth local government areas, Cardinia, Casey, Hume, Melton, Mitchell, Whittlesea and Wyndham. We want to prioritise socio-economic areas of disadvantage, and that's defined by the CEFA index from the ATO. And we want to prioritise regional and rural areas. And this is, we would only use this when our grant round is oversubscribed. I might just add, you wouldn't need to specifically mention this into your application. This is more for our internal assessment. Right, so grants, we're looking to open for the applications next week, and that'll close on 19th of November, which is the same closing date of the other grant stream if you're interested in a new toy library establishment grant. All the information's up on the webpage, vic.gov.au, Toy Library Grants Program, and you'd be registering through Smarty Grants and completing the application form in Smarty Grants. Yeah, so if you have any more questions about that, the best place to look is the webpage, or you could be getting in contact with us or TLA. And I might just pass it over to Erin, who'll go into a lot more detail about how to be using these grants.
Helps if I unmute myself before I start talking. And I apologise if you hear little noises in the background. I have people who are still going to bed. So hopefully they will take themselves off in that direction. And I'm going to hit share. And can we see that? Cool. Excellent. All right. So welcome everybody, and thank you for your time, giving up your time tonight. So let's talk a little bit about, as Kira said, the grant application process is actually very straightforward for you, but what it will take is some pre-planning on your part to actually identify those areas in which you that you want to focus on, and so you can actually come up with a really clear plan for what you would like to change, grow. How is this really going to impact your toy library? So for those of you who are experienced at grant writing, stick with us, because this will be things that you already do. For those of you who haven't had a lot of experience in grant writing, this is for you guys. So first of all, know your toy library and know your numbers, and that's the first place to start for anything, particularly even if you're looking at strategic planning or what direction your library is going. So where are you currently at? Are you actively growing? And we know that this is the case for a lot of toy libraries in the current financial situation. There's been strong demand for toy libraries. So if that's you, then this is a great opportunity for helping that direction. If you're still rebuilding from COVID, or are you struggling in other areas? So identify where you're currently at and what this grant can actually do to assist that. So what are you already doing well? And what areas of operation can you improve on, and how can this grant actually go towards doing that? And that's what TLA is here to do, is to help workshop some of those ideas with you over the coming weeks, to make sure that you can find some creative ways to actually make things work really well for your toy library. So when was the last time you actually talked to your members? When did you last ask them how they felt about your service? And this is a really great opportunity for you to do that, to actually get a feel for where it is you need to focus your efforts with this grant. Know your numbers. Do you have a budget? It can be really, I've been there in a toy library where we were simply, because we were a really small toy library, we were going from year to year. We got what income we got and we spent what income we got. And fortunately we didn't go over that, but we didn't actively plan for how much we were going to make. So it's really important that it's a really important step for toy libraries to make sure that from a governance perspective, you know what your outgoings are, what do you have to meet each year, and therefore what income do you have to make. But that also tells a story about where you can best support. This grant can help best support you as well. So the other thing to consider is, what did your toy library look like at this time last year versus today? So where have you come from in the last year? Does that tell you a picture of where you're going? Is that going to help guide where that budget looks like as well? So there's some of the ideas of things you might use to gauge where you're currently at. And where do you want to be in 12 months' time? So, and that's the real question that we're asking. The important thing to remember as well, this grant is actually runs over 2 years. So you've actually got 2 years to spend the funding. So you're actually, when I say 12 months there, you're actually starting to look towards 24 months. So what's the plan over the next 2 years to be able to use these funds? So we're telling a story about what you want to achieve with the grant money, and that's what's going to catch for Kira and Catherine and the other assessors of the grant. That's what's going to catch their eye. What do you want to achieve? What's the goal? What's your why? What's your current situation? Why improve that? What does success look like for you, and who benefits from that, and how do they benefit? How's the project sustainable? So financially, time commitment, can you achieve it? And how are you going to do that? Have you got the volunteers? And then how are you going to measure the outcomes of your grant? So what's your starting point? And that's where we started to talk about that surveying your members. So where are you starting from, and where are you going to grow to or go to? All right, so some of the ideas that we came up with, and this is absolutely not an exhaustive list, and we really look forward to seeing and workshopping what ideas that toy libraries can come up with that's going to work for you. So really the easiest one for all toy libraries is probably, yep, we need some new toys. So you might choose to strategically do that to enhance certain age ranges by having a look at your membership. So is it to attract new members? Is it members who are coming in at a certain age group? Or are you having members leave once they hit a certain age because there's no toys available for them? So are you trying to retain existing members? So coming up with your why there for particular areas. Do you want to develop or extend your party hire range? Is that going to make you more financially sustainable? Is that something that will help your toy library? Have you got some key categories that are looking really sad and tired and need a bit of a refresh? So particularly looking at that. Do you want to develop particular areas that you don't currently have? So I know that some of our successful toy libraries from the grant earlier in the year about diversity and inclusion, they were looking to develop the toys in inclusive and all abilities ranges. So that might be an area that you consider really important for your toy library. And the other important thing is if one of your goals for the next 12 to 24 months is to grow your membership, then you're going to need enough toys to service them. So do you need to simply extend your toy collection to meet the needs of your growing membership? Make sure you've got enough baby walkers in stock to keep those toddlers on the go. So equipment, storage, cleaning and maintenance. So this is a really great one for toy libraries who have been perhaps struggling along in a space and never been able to look at those different ways to store things and getting creative to either be mobile or to make things easier for your volunteers as well. So you might want to upgrade mobile toy storage solutions. So you might want to go to hanging racks or improve display options. You might, and I know another toy library is waiting on their click and collect lockers to arrive. I saw that post today. So you might want to put in click and collect lockers to increase accessibility to your toy library, so to catch a cohort of members who just can't get into your toy library when you're open. Things to help you with processing or transporting large toys. You might want to overhaul your packaging and presentation of toys. So I know that that's a common theme, is everyone wants to go away from hanging or go into boxes, or so it depends on the layout of your toy library, but that may be a project that's been on the cards to overhaul. And look, you may want to make it easier for members to actually find toys within your toy library. So putting systems in place to help you improve that user experience of your members. So in terms of managing toys and member administration, this is the great one for all of your technology upgrades. If anyone's using a dinosaur laptop, this is the category for you guys. But it's also if you wanted to go to look at, say, self-checkout options or using barcode scanners. So again, that comes down to both your volunteer experience and your user experience within the toy library. If you can increase those capacities, maybe it lets you get more members through in a session. Or it makes it a much more enjoyable experience for those people. So you might want to look at your signage within the library to make things, again, that user experience. How are they finding toys, identifying toys to borrow, whether that's categories, age ranges, all those sorts of things. And then also factoring in any costs that say you went to barcode scanning. Do you have to upgrade your labels? in this section, you might also want to develop training videos for your volunteers to, again, improve both the user experience so that when they come, the volunteers that are helping them are more qualified, but also to improve that experience and upskill your volunteers and really a lot of that impact when you have volunteers, the sentiment and the feeling that they have when they do that comes from their experience. So if they are comfortable and they feel trained and they feel supported, then that's going to be an improved experience within your toy library. Under this section, if you're not already online with MyBase or Settles, or if you're using a manual system, this could be a great opportunity to upgrade to that because, as we said, it will improve that experience for your members. And then we go to the one-off cost sections. So these are just some ideas within there to improve or grow. So if you wanted to host events specifically aimed towards growing your membership and attracting new members, this is where you would put that. So stay and plays or messy play days, events, costs to attend markets or festivals. And this is also where we would include things like professional fees or consultancy to address particular skill shortages that you have within the toy library. Training of staff and volunteers, you might want to look at one-off professional development for paid staff in terms of improving their capacity to provide that member experience and support parents in their visits. And then looking at also in there upskilling your volunteers. So do they need some specific training so that you can successfully achieve some of these different goals that you've got. And then we come also to marketing and promotion. So this is another great one for one-off. So if you need to refresh your photography, if your website is 10, 15 years old, it might be a really great opportunity to do that. Likewise, I know some of the toy libraries are, I know Grovedale, my toy library is approaching 40 years. So we probably don't quite, we did have a new logo not long ago, but it has been around a while. So they're the kind of things that you might want to look at. Do we actually need a branding refresh to attract those new members and give that experience to those members and really make it feel like a warm and welcoming place? You may want to update any signage, whether that's fixed or mobile signage for the exterior of your building to let people know, hey guys, we're here. We also put under here if you wanted to do social media advertising, a targeted campaign to attract new members. And if you needed some professional management in there, it would have to be very specific towards a campaign to basically to achieve your goals that you set out within your grant application. So if you're aiming to grow your members by 100%, then this might be a way to achieve that. But that would be within the scope of the grant. So then we go on and we will send a copy of this out to all of our attendees from today and tonight so that you don't have to scramble to write anything down or take photos. These are simply some examples that we came up with for what your member impacts might look like. And that's really going to be determined by what it is you actually choose to target your project around. And it might be that your project targets a number of those across a number of those different areas, but the ultimate impact is that you want to grow your membership, or the ultimate impact is that you want to overall improve the member experience. So, and it can be multiples of those, but remember you've only got 150 words here, so you really need to keep it short, sharp and snappy and tell us where you want to go with your toy library, and that's what you want to achieve with these things. So we've given examples here of how that click and collect service why that's important to your membership and how that's going to make change within your organisation. There's an example there about user experience. So you've got your pain points that you currently experience and how you're going to tackle that with your project. Talking about stay and plays and how that allows engagement with your members. So that's, again, increasing that or improving that member experience. And then these are some more examples. So how developing training resources for your volunteers will improve their experience and therefore the member experience within the toy library. Professional development and attracting new members. So then we go on to our community impacts, and this is something that you guys would be selling all the time when you talk about toy libraries. So what are the overall impacts of your toy library within the community? Some of them will be very similar between all of the toy libraries, and some will be very specific to your own area. So it might be if you do have employees, well, one of your community impacts is that you provide employment within your local community. So that's an important impact that you provide. You might provide volunteering opportunities for community members and how that impacts those people within the community, how it ups their skills, what kind of impacts that provides for them. Whether your community impact is that you'll be able to decrease your waiting list and get more members into the toy library and get more reach within the community by growing your toy library. You could also talk about the collaborations. I know that you all do fantastic work with all of your different stakeholders, whether that's maternal health nurses, playgroups, etc. So show us how you make those impacts and how you have that reach into the community. If you're a remote location, show us how important you are within your local community, how much impact you have with the young people in your community, and talk about, as we said, talk about those networks that you develop with early years service providers. So talk about if you've got connections with occupational therapists or early childhood educators, how that impacts into your community and how you spread the impact of the toy library across your area. And so last but not least, we come to evaluating your project. So really important for you in planning out your project to know what success looks like and how you're actually going to measure what you do. And whilst the application itself won't ask you specifically for this is something that's really important for you to know up front, because there's nothing worse than getting to the end of a project and going, oh, I should have surveyed my members at the start of this to find out why. So make sure that if you know what you're going to be measuring to determine the success of the project, you take those numbers at the very start, and so know where you are now. So that you've got some tangible measures of success. You can talk about the increase in membership year on year. You would be able to get numbers of the number of toys on loan, the frequency of visits to your toy library, the frequency in times of toys borrowed. So they're the tangible things that those of you using MyBase and Settles, you would have access to all of that reporting. And there's creative ways to get that information out of those reports. If you're not sure how, there's some great support groups, so we can workshop those with you. But then the other thing that's actually, it's really important but really hard to measure is those intangibles, so the sentiment of your members. So we talked about surveys earlier. This is a great opportunity for you to find out how your members are feeling now. How do they feel about the toy library? What knowledge do they have of the toy library? What knowledge do they have of your processes? All those kinds of questions. How do they feel their child's learning is at now? And then ask them for their observations at the end. So how is their child's learning and development through play changed? How has it improved? How has their confidence grown as a parent because of the toy library? So there are all kinds of questions that you should start to think about whilst you're thinking about the actual application and project itself. All right, so the key things: you have 2 years to spend the funding. So a lot of, particularly for small toy libraries who haven't had grant success before, haven't really looked at grants, $6,000 is a lot of money. And you might be wondering how you're going to spend it. So don't worry, we do, as we've said, you've got 2 years. So Kira will briefly mention, or we mentioned in the earlier presentation, that there'll be a check-in at about 12 months to see how everything's tracking, and then there'll be an acquittal process at the end of the 24 months. So you'll be able to check in and see how things are going along the way. So it's not like you have to spend it all in the first 3 months. So it can be a much longer term project. The other thing that came up earlier that we wanted to touch on was that if you do have multiple existing branches of your toy library, each branch may apply for funding. And so we suggested that in this instance, this is where you may like to actually think about applying over multiple different years. So if you had 4 branches, you might apply in years 1, 2, 3, and 4, just to spread out the process for you in terms of managing the funding, so that you're not trying to manage 4 projects at once, because that would be chaos. And then the other thing that we are offering, so Toy Libraries Australia, I'm running some grant workshop sessions. So an opportunity for you to drop in, workshop your projects. Does this fit? How is this sounding? What do you think? Or we're stuck for ideas. We really want to apply help. So we've got a new Victorian Facebook group. The link to that is in the national group if you haven't already seen it. So please jump in there. We'll drop all of the links in there. So we've got this coming Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock, Thursday night, the 19th at 7:30, and then Friday the 27th at 10:30. So there's lots of opportunities to workshop those ideas, and certainly you're welcome to reach out over email at any time in between if you've got ideas or questions. So which brings me to questions. Do we have any questions?
Thanks, Erin. I think there was a couple of questions in the chat, which I know Catherine's already addressed, but yes, all applications, if you're putting one in now, it will, if you aren't funded, in the round 1, that application will roll through into future years. So you wouldn't need to reapply every single year. You would just need that first application. And also the CIFA scores, you don't really need to use that in your application. This is more for our assessment, like how we are going to prioritise getting the funding out. So that's more of an internal thing for us, but just to be aware of, that's how we're going to be ranking and assessing these applications.
I have dropped the link there in the chat, though, for anyone who is curious about trying to decipher it. Yes.
Great. So there's a couple of questions. I've got Nudovanding. Is that Helen?
No.
Yes, Helen.
Just a query. When you apply for the amount of the grant, will it be funded at the full amount, or will it be funded at a proportion of the funding available? So I know, just to give you an example, our council grants, we can apply for up to a certain amount. We apply for the full amount. They then divvy that up in the buckets that they've got. And sometimes they just give us kind of a random percentage. Is it what we apply for? If it's successful, we will get the funds that we apply for? Or is
it depends on, your toy library. So the Toy World toy libraries will get 3,000. All other toy libraries will get 6, and then there's a handful of toy libraries that are in high growth areas that will get the 10. So unless you know that you're in a high growth area.
6, then we're successful, we will get 6, is what you're saying.
Yes,
So
6 up front. Yes.
Can you apply for less than 6, or is that's a stupid question? It's all right.
No.
Leave that one.
We're just leaving it at that
Yep.
at that fixed amount for ease, really, and consistency. Yeah, so we
that makes the outcome very easy to understand.
Yeah. And you'll see that through the application process as well, that, we ask you to kind of consider how you're going to use it at a fairly high level, noting, that you won't know necessarily exactly kind of how each dollar is going to be spent, but at a high level.
No, that's right. I just
wondered
have
some planning.
Because it's over 4 years, whether or not you had particular percentages that were going to be allocated, and whether that would break up the amount.
We've got sufficient funding to support most applications. Yeah.
Okay. And is it 2 years from the date of the successful application?
2 years from the date that you're awarded the grant. So successful applications will be awarded early 2024. We're aiming for February. So that would mean, 12 months after, in 2025, you'd get a bit of a check-in with TLA, and then that final acquittal will be 24 months after early 2024. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. The next question, Angela.
Hi there. Thank you. This is very exciting. So I'm the president of the Kyneton Toy Library, and we are just in a very big transition phase as we're moving from our current location of 38 years into a new location, and which is fantastic. And the council have given us this new location, but they're not funding any fit out of the new premises whatsoever. So we have to fund everything ourselves. So we have a long list of what we need, and we're going through different groups and grants and things, trying to organise that. What I'm thinking here is we've just got some sort of basic safety concerns about fencing around the library, so that when a member has their children with them and they have all their toys in their hands. The new location's on a busy road. We're really concerned about children running out from the library and getting on the busy road. So as an example, that is quite a big priority for us. If we, we pull together, and we've got quotes and things already, and we pull that together, and we aren't being faithful. We're trying to go for any kind of grant that we can, because we're quite desperate to get money to help us at the moment. If we put the application in, and then it turned out that, and we do have a long list, it's a very long list, but if it turned out that we managed to get some funding to fund some of these needs in the meantime, whilst we were waiting to hear on the application here, can we sort of change the specifics of what we're applying for? Like, let's just say we had funding that paid for that fencing. Could we apply the funding, if we were successful, could we apply that funding to other aspects of things that we do need to help fit the new space out?
Yeah, it's a great question, Angela. I'm happy to take that one. So you'll complete an acquittal at the end, and again, you'll acquit at a fairly high level. So you will be required to attest to utilising your funding in alignment with the guidelines. And so, just like that, guidelines is your Bible. So even if, things change through the period of time, please always just use that guidelines as your reference. And the department's funding, TLA in particular, the project support of Erin in her Victorian role to be able to help you navigate those types of things. But certainly we understand, that things change, and please utilise any funding that you can to support what else you can pay for. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Great. Yen, you had a question? Sorry, you're on mute.
That's all right. That's a rookie mistake that I always seem to make. I've got two questions. With the funding application, GST, inclusive, exclusive, how does that work?
Exclusive.
Okay. And
Yep.
then the other question is there any requirement for toy libraries to provide in kind? I guess, most of us are volunteer run anyway, so there's likely to be volunteer effort, but I guess is there any particular requirement to provide matched funding or any other additional in-kind funding?
No.
Thank you.
No. I mean, it's a great point, Yen, just in terms of, the Victorian government has made this support available to Victorian toy libraries, noting, that you are an army of volunteers, and it's really seeking, to inject some well-deserved funds in. So we understand that the administration of, the grants will also be administered, by volunteers and where possible paid volunteers, but not seeking to kind of put any extra burden on your volunteer workforce. We're trying to make it as straightforward as possible.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? Got one in the chat. Can I ask about communication between the LGAs and the state government? Have LGAs been informed? Yes, they have. We've been meeting with them a couple of times over the past month, a couple of months. So they have been informed, yes. I think there's another hand up. Emma?
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm from Namurka Toy Library. I just wanted to ask, we've been successful in a few grants over the last 2 or so years since I've been with the Toy Library, and I was just feeling like, should we be like, we could definitely use it, but I just feel like, does any like previous grants, the latest grants we've got, we're doing redoing all our shelving, which will hopefully give us more room for more toys. So another grant could help with that. So I'm just asking if that's okay.
Yes, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no problem. Congratulations on getting that last grant.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Just a
so you're welcome to
reminder,
apply.
and just a reminder, Emma, that it's a 4-year program. So this year, there's no pressure to engage with the program this year. You've got 4 years and 4 rounds to apply. So you've got through until 2027. So if you want to space out your effort and, the acquittal of grants and, working out what you're going to do with it, then please, perhaps consider applying slightly later in the 4-year grant round.
Yep, no worries. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, if there's no further questions, we might just wrap up and all go have some dinner. Yeah, if you wanted to get in contact with Erin or into her drop-in sessions, they're coming up over the next month, so those are available. All the information's up on the website as well, so you can check that out. Just got a question in from Rachel.
Yep, just one last one. Can you apply for the funding more than once, or is it a one-off situation?
It depends. So the priority is getting everyone funded first. If you did want to see if you can get a little bit more funding, get back in contact with Erin towards the end of the 4-year program, and there may be funding available. But we really want to get these first round of grants through first.
Yep, thank you.
And we had another question in the chat from Nana Wadding. What are the dates for the next round, Kira? So when will we launch round 2?
Oh, round 2. So round 1 is opening on next week. Round 2, we've just started planning what next year is going to look, but it'll follow pretty closely towards the beginning of the year. So earlier in the year, we're looking at at going for round 2, so a little bit earlier than this grants program. But yeah, it should follow pretty quickly afterwards. And another question about branches. Do we apply for each branch by name? Yes. So each branch is eligible for funding. Yes, just apply by each branch name. And I think I've got some branches where they've got the toy library name and then the suburb that they're located in, just to help us differentiate between the different branches.
You'll also need to provide your street address and the like. So we'll have enough information in there to demonstrate which branch is which.
Yeah. I think there's another question from Liz. Hi, Liz. Did you have a question?
And chat at the same time doesn't work. If you're in a growth area, could you apply for 6K in 1 year and 4K in the next to get to 10? No.
No. It's
yeah.
Just
to put one in for 10.
Just one in for 10. Yeah, that'll just help us making sure that we're getting all our funding out. Otherwise, it could get a bit tricky for us.
Yeah. Well, I just want to clarify that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And there was another question from Catherine. How will we know when the application's open? Is it via the Facebook group? Erin, will that be on the Facebook group?
I'll absolutely put it on the Facebook group, but we'll also email you all as well.
Great. Yeah, so that's next week. It should be up on the website pretty quickly. So, Yen, did you have a question?
Again, on mute. Sorry. Yes, one more question, and not specifically for a project that I'm thinking of, but I know that it comes up in questions about grants on our forum often. Is can this cover like operating costs, or is it specifically one-off project? Okay.
Yeah, operating costs would be out of scope. So ongoing operational expenses like staffing, rent, insurance, that sort of thing is not included in this grant round. But Erin, did you want to comment on that? About where it would fit? I think you mentioned professional. Yeah.
So professional. So if you don't have professional skills, so we had a question in the earlier session that we did today. They have a storage issue that they have absolutely zero concept of how they can physically tackle this mountain of nothingness. And we talked about engaging a professional company to give them advice on how to do that. So if you basically it came down to if you can get an invoice for it, so an ABN for services, that is likely to be deemed to be a professional service that's being offered. But if you're paying an existing staff member, that is not going to be covered.
So if it was, for example, we wanted to operate Stay and Play, which we don't currently have, and we were to engage our existing staff member to staff those Stay and Play sessions, would that be covered, or is that kind of...
I'll jump in there. So staffing is viewed as an ongoing operational cost, and so that is out of scope for this grant program. But my sense is that you're all pretty creative thinkers, and that so you'll utilise the grant for items in alignment with the guidelines, and that will help free up funding for you to be able to direct to staffing, etc. But yeah, we have to be we have to make sure that this grant is not directed towards staffing and ongoing operational costs.
Thank you.
Great. Liz, did you have another question, or was that hand from last time?
Last time. Yeah.
Okay, no worries. I got another question here from Sue. Can we ask for funding for a standalone location processing centre that supports branches but is not a branch? I don't know what that means.
We might
standalone location.
Monash, we might ask you to liaise and with Erin, and Erin, if you can seek a bit more information about that one,
Absolutely.
and you can pass that query through to us if relevant.
Yep, absolutely. We can workshop that one.
Awesome, thanks.
What about paying staff to migrate to an online database, such as paying extra hours for our toy coordinator to allow them to do a data entry? Catherine, did you want to address that one?
So at a high level, there is provision to acknowledge costs incurred as part of the grant administration, as part of administering this grant is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, we really, as I said, this grant is not intended for staffing. If there are costs incurred in order for you to be able to successfully expend the grant, then we understand, that there might be some there might be some situations where that's required. So just think about it practically. Think about what the intention of the grant is. Please, as I said, pay attention to the guidelines. Nuanced questions, please direct through to Erin, and we can work that through at our end. And yeah, we'll work it through together. But yeah, have a good look at the guidelines and pay attention to the to what's out of scope.
And we can talk about ways to, as we said, direct some of your other funds, direct money away from other things that you're spending and put that into the grant so that you can free up those funds you'd otherwise spend for that staff member.
Yeah, and I just put the grant, the grant guidelines into the chat as well. So everything will be updated on that web page, and we'll also add the link to the applications that'll go live next week. All right, so if there's no further questions, thanks for joining us. Great to see so many people turn up this late at night. So feel free to get in contact with Erin. Check out the web page for any of the information about the guidelines. Other than that, thank you so much.
Thanks very much, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kira. Thanks, Erin.
Thanks, Kira. Thanks, Catherine.
Getting better with those.